Welcome to Lecture 19, Science, Media, and Democracy. Every day we are confronted with science-like information. It's one thing to have basic critical thinking skills, but without accurate facts and a good understanding of a specific topic, the critical thinking skills really have nothing to work with. So we want to look at in this lecture how to find reliable information. No matter how many letters an individual has behind their name, they are still only one person. No one source is definitive. We want to make every attempt to verify the information. We want to look for any information that is contradictory. You might find that it's helpful to search when you're looking for something and put in there the keyword scam or skeptic or skeptical or even fraud, and then see what comes up. So you're not just looking for that topic, but that topic as perhaps a scam. Popular publications have a tendency to source science stories in the same way that they source other stories, typically using experts in the field. And in other stories, that is very appropriate to ask somebody who seems to be an expert of what's going on. But in science stories, you need a lot more than that. An individual can easily be the lone maverick in the field, and what they believe and what they think doesn't hold according to the standard belief in that particular field. And they might be the one that's way out there in left field. 98% of the people might believe something totally different than what this one individual in that field happens to say. So just citing one source who appears to be an expert is not good enough when we're looking at scientific evidence. We also need to look at confusing the authority of the individual with the authority of the field. That in every field there's dissenting opinion. There's somebody who doesn't necessarily agree with what everybody else is thinking. But what it is somebody disagreeing with what everybody else says. And so we have one person going against the mass. That doesn't necessarily mean they're wrong. But what it means is we need to look deeper at the information. The popular media has a tendency to confuse speculative research with confirmatory research. Most research starts out as speculative research. It starts out with what if. It starts out with a thought, an idea, and let's do some research on this stuff. And actually, most research is wrong. It proves most of the people that the research that we do my scientific studies, I proved that the theory I just had was incorrect or was wrong. And the media has this tendency to latch on to this first study, or latch on early on in the studies where things are starting to look positive, but there has not yet been enough confirmatory research to say one way or the other. We need to consider the quality of the source when we're getting information, simply the quality of the source. You don't want to trust any, for example, website that's trying to sell you something. Their information is obviously going to be skewed toward the positive of that product so that you'll buy that product. You don't want to trust the information given on political websites. Political websites skew the information one way or the other way, or perhaps even totally ignore and leave out information. Then there's controversies that are actually manufactured controversies. Two great examples of this are global climate change and vaccinations. It is very well understood that the global climate is changing. It's very well understood that vaccinations do prevent illnesses. The scientific community accepts both of these premises. But no matter where you look, you are going to find contradictory information. You are going to find information that says vaccinations don't prevent illnesses. You can find evidence that says, or sites that say Vaccinations cause autism. You're going to have all sorts of sites that saying no, global warming does not exist. What we need to look at is what's the truth value in these sites. Are these trusted sites? Are these coming from truly medical or scientific areas, or is there a strong political agenda around them? There's a very strong political agenda around global warming. Politicians all around the world would prefer if global warming simply would go away. There is some minor controversy yet on whether humans are actually causing global warming. The scientific community seems to be leaning toward that, but there's still some iffies yet. There's still a lot more studies that need to be done before the scientific community can actually say that yes, human activity is contributing to global warming. But the aspect that the globe is, we are in global climate change, that aspect is absolutely undeniable at this point. There is a concept called science by press release, and that is that many mainstream media outlets have reduced or even eliminated their scientific divisions, their science divisions. And so they're relying on generalized reporters to report on the science things. So now the generalized reporters are out there. Many newspapers and magazines will simply reprint news releases without any fact-checking involved in it. And if the material came from a university, the university's chances are they'll have a press office, and what they try and do is to sensationalize these press releases in order to get the media to cover it. Because every time my institution is in the media, then the name of my institution comes up, and I'm going to get some more students from this press conference. You've heard about my institution now. It becomes part of your choices. And the more that my institution gets in the news, the more likely you are to come here, which means I'm going to make more of a profit. I'm going to get some more students coming in. Science by press release is not the way science is done. Science is you do your study and then you publish your study. Whether that you publish a study that showed your theory incorrect or showed your theory correct, you publish that study. And you publish it into the journals in the field so that other people in the field can read what you've done and then try and reproduce what you've done, or come up with a counter theory and try and prove your theory incorrect. Press releases are jumping into the general public, and the general public does not have a good understanding of what the scientific process is. A great example of this was the press release on cold fusion. That these scientists got together and they said that they created a fusion, the same type of energy that powers our sun, this fusion in these jars that is cold. It doesn't require all this massive heat. And that just seems so incredibly unusual that how could this possibly be? But the scientists went out to the news release and in a press conference and reported their findings. They had to turn around and eat their words later on as more and more scientists tried to reproduce this and found out, no, this is not reproducible. So either those scientists either committed fraud, or they made some mistakes, or there were flaws in their studies, flaws in their experiments in order to do this. And this is science by press release. When we look at the media and the science and the information that we're getting, we consider things into a false balance. The standard practice in media is to cover both sides of a topic, especially if it's a controversial topic, to cover each side equally. And that's a wonderful thing as long as it's an opinionated topic. So covering something in politics, it's great to cover both sides of an issue. You want to cover something in welfare reform or something, it's great to get both sides of the issue. But when you cover something like science that has very clear and cut and dry standards, covering both sides of the issue simply does not make sense. It's not an approach that works well for science. And there are some scientific controversies. And it might be that the 95% of all of the people in a particular field believe A, and there's 5% that believe B. They both have some information to back them up, but the consensus of opinion, the massive consensus of opinion in this particular field is A. But the news media will report equally A and B, giving the B the equal weight as A, if that makes sense to you. So that, this one scientist might even be the absolute lone maverick, and yet they will give this one crackpot scientist as much media coverage as they give the general population of the scientists. Journalists need to represent both sides when it's issues like politics. But when science is about verifiable and testable information, really don't. A great example of this is the Growing Earth Society. There is a group of people out there that dismiss the concept of gravity, basically. And their theory is that all of the continents all around the globe fit together like a puzzle. And the reason they do this is because at one time the Earth was very, very small and it was covered with a landmass. But as the years went on, that landmass separated and got farther and farther apart, and then which broke the continents up. Well, there's a group of people out there that seriously believe this, but this violates all sorts of laws of science, of the stability of matter and energy, that you can't create or destroy matter. That where's all this other matter coming from? It goes against the stuff that Newton's talked about, even the stuff that Einstein's talked about. All of this goes against the standard practice in psychology. And yet, when the media reports the growing Earth culture, they report it equally with the standard scientific aspects, and we get to believing that, well, half the scientists believe this and half the scientists believe that. It doesn't really matter what's going on. We need to be really careful and evaluate the type of information that we get, even in the mainstream media. In our next lecture, we're going to be talking about experts and consensus.